So today I'm going to talk about 5 things or 5 points on how I reprogrammed my mind to learn French quickly for TEF Canada. These are going to be the things that I learned over 12 months of learning language myself to clear my TEF Canada exam. But also after that, after having cleared the exam, once I started teaching as well, what were the things that I learned so that I can share this experience with you and you are able to learn French in a better way. So what did I do? What were the mind shifts that happened in my brain during this language learning process of 12 months, and then teaching to students as well, what experiences that I learned from students on what they feel and what they not feel. I'll be really honest with you. In this video there are going to be 5 points, and these 5 points, they may change the way you look at French. Why? Because sometimes we do overcomplicate things which are not that complicated. So please listen to it carefully. It is going to change the way you approach French. So French learning is not a rocket science. Why? Because it's very close to English. Almost 30% of the vocabulary is common between French and English. And English is the language which came after French. That means English shares a lot of words. It takes a lot of words from French to get to use as a vocabulary. That means there are 30% words and vocabulary in French which is common to English. For example, l'hôpital, which is hospital, l'appartement, which is apartment, and occupation, which is occupation, observation, observation. So just the pronunciation is different, but the words are really like almost exactly same. And there are a lot of such words. When I started learning language during my back in my time, I also saw the same thing, that a lot of words are common. When you learn language, you feel like something is completely new. Okay, something is completely new, but that's not the case. 30% of the vocabulary, you will see the same thing getting used in French as you have learned it in English. So that means your 30% task is already done. Okay. The other thing is, see, honestly, French is not a rocket science. A lot of people have this idea that learning language is impossible. I can't just learn language in 1 year, or I can't just do this in XYZ amount of time. What makes you think that? Okay. What makes you think that? Because if you are giving time, you're going to improve. For me as well, I used to think that it is not possible, but once I started dedicating more time into it, I saw the results and I saw that it is actually possible. So instead of thinking emotionally, oh, it's not that actually it's not possible, it's just that you do not have enough priority to give enough time into learning French, because of which it is not becoming possible for you. So you saying French is not possible is actually an excuse. Okay, I'm not saying to you, but I'm saying this is an excuse that we give to ourselves to make us feel good that it cannot be done. Okay, but it is possible. Okay, if someone asks you to go to Jupiter, you just say directly, oh, it is impossible. You don't feel ashamed. Okay, but if someone says you to go to that particular building over there, you cannot say it's impossible, because if you say it's impossible, I mean, other people have done it. Other people have been going to that building, but you say it's impossible. You feel shame. So, see, that's the thing. The reality is, it is not impossible. Okay. But you make it impossible for you. Why? Because you want to feel good that it just cannot be done. But the honest part is, it is actually possible. It's just a binary. If you're giving time, you will learn French. If you're not giving time, you will not learn French. That is what I learned. Okay, that is what I learned during my journey as well. That more time I gave, I was actually able to learn French. Okay, so this is going to be the first point actually, that French language is not a rocket science. The more you give time, the better you are going to get. This is for sure. Okay. Now, the second the second way how my brain got reprogrammed into learning language much better was that, in the beginning, when I was learning the language, when I was learning French, first 2 months were very difficult. Okay, first 2 months were very difficult to build a routine, to build a habit of sitting on regular basis to be able to study the language. But eventually, after 2 3 months, what started happening is, when I would miss any of my French study session or practice session, I used to feel a void inside myself. Okay, and it's actually true. I'm not making this stuff up. That is actually true. The more you give volume into learning the language, after a few weeks and after a few days, you actually build a routine. You actually start building a habit. And at that point, if you stop learning the language, or if you did not study any particular day, you feel a void inside yourself that, yeah, I should have studied today. I did not learn French today. Something is missing. Something is missing. So that is what started happening to me after 2 3 months of practice. And that is a very good thing. Okay, that is going to be helpful for you tremendously. Why? Because now you are in the phase where French learning is not just a chore for you, it is actually a habit, it is actually a routine. this is the point where there is no going back. Okay, so what I learned is, once any student, or once even me, once I passed that 2 3 months, the initial phase of 2 3 months where everything is new, where where you have not built the routine. Learning French in itself is difficult for you, not because it's a language, but because you have not built that routine right now. But once you are past that phase, once you build that routine, then things starts to pick up. You are able to invest more time and it gets better for you. The third point that I want to talk about is, I do not need to learn verb conjugations to be better in French. Okay, so this is something that I also learned after. I learned it after a while. So, the experience that I'm sharing you, it is already going to cut a lot of hard work for you. Why? Because this is something that I learned over a longer period of time after a lot of hit and trials while learning French. That I do not need to memorize the verb conjugations in order to be better in the language. Okay, when did I learn this? I learned it when I started reading French. Okay, firstly, first 3 4 months, I was really focused a lot into learning the verb conjugations. Okay, je parle, tu parles, il parle, nous parlons, vous parlez, il parle, and je choisis, tu choisis, il choisit, nous choisissons, vous choisissez, so forth. But that did not show any progress in me. But once I started reading more, once I started listening more, I started to see the common patterns between conjugations, and conjugations stuck in my brain subconsciously rather than actively memorizing them. Because see, conjugation pattern, you can memorize it for a day or two, but then eventually over a week or 2 weeks you are going to forget it. Okay, but if you read more, if you listen more, if you do more input of the language, you are going to permanently retain the conjugation. So this is what I learned. This is how I reprogrammed my mind, that please do not, I should not worry about the conjugations and just focus on reading more, listening more. And conjugations, they automatically started to be permanent in my brain subconsciously. So this is what is going to really help you as well. So do not worry about the conjugations. Okay, fourth point, and this is going to change the whole approach of French for you. What I learned is that there will be exceptions, there will be confusions. I just have to go along with it. Okay, there are going to be a lot of times in French when there will be exceptions. Like sometimes, there is a rule that consonants at the end are not pronounced, but you will see that it is getting pronounced. Okay, so there will be exceptions. Sometimes you are going to conjugate a verb, but some verbs are irregular verbs, so you have to memorize them. So that is also an exception. There are also going to be a lot of exceptions regarding grammatical rules, and there will also be a lot of confusions for you, because it was for me as well, that in English we write the phrase like this, but why do we write in French like this? Okay, in English we say I am 23 years old. In French we say I have 23 years. It doesn't really make sense. But see, you have to understand that these two are completely different languages. You cannot compare. Okay, sometimes you can, it can help you when you compare the languages, but most of the times it is going to be counterproductive for you if you try to compare the languages. It's just going to be more difficult for you to be open to grasping a new language. So that is why I would recommend this. Why? Because I was also at this point when I used to get confused between English and French a lot. But one day I was sitting and I was like, it's not doing any good. Like, even if I'm comparing the languages, it's not doing any good. Then I stopped comparing, because I came to understand that French is a different language, English is a different language. Behind them, they have different context behind them. So I cannot really compare it. Once I stopped comparing, I saw a huge progress. Okay, so this is what I would say. Do not worry too much. Just go along with the new stuff that you learn, with the new confusions that you encounter. The last and the most important point is that I can, that I like to share is, everything has a time. Okay, you have to stop being impatient about it. What do I mean? I mean that reading, listening, speaking, writing, everything will be improved over the time. I have seen a lot of students doing mistakes, a lot of French learners, they do this mistake, that they are at A1, A2 level, and they will start worrying about speaking. Okay, oh, how do, like, I'm not able to speak. I've started learning French, I'm not able to speak. But see, the reason A1, A2 levels are beginner levels, because you won't be able to speak, or you are not able to speak. That's why A1, A2 level are beginner levels. Okay, so you have to understand that in order to speak, you have to be very comfortable in the language in the first place. Okay, you have to know, first of all, you need to know a lot of vocabulary, a lot of language in itself, which comes through reading. Okay, reading is something which comes through understanding the grammar and vocabulary. So your first and foremost, the very important checkpoint should be to first get done with the grammar as soon as possible, understand the French grammar, then learn A1, A2, B1 level vocabulary as much as you can. Okay. And once that is done, you start reading more. And obviously you will improve your vocabulary by reading and listening. Okay. So you start reading and listening more. To do so, once your reading and listening is at a good pace, once you are getting comfortable in the language, then you switch to speaking, which will be way more easier for you to speak if you do it that way. If you try to speak at A1, A2 level, you are just going to get demotivated. Nothing is going to happen. Okay. I'm talking from my experience because I started my speaking after 4 months into the language learning, not when I started learning the language. Why? Because logically it doesn't make sense. Okay. You don't know the language. How can you speak? In order to speak, you need to know enough language. Okay. So start speaking later. Don't worry about it right now. Once you start it later, then you will see it's a lot more easier to speak at the later, on the later time when you will start it later. So same thing with writing. For writing, you do need a professional guidance. So if you're looking for professional guidance, if you're looking to properly prepare for TEF Canada for speaking and writing and all the other aspects, you can reach out to me as well. But what I would recommend is for writing, you do need a professional guidance. You cannot check your own writings. It doesn't really make sense because you need that professional eye where you are doing structural mistakes. What are the continuous pattern problems that you're doing and things like that. Okay. So this is how I reprogrammed my mind to learn French very quickly for TEF Canada, which is what I would recommend you as well. If you want to learn French, you can reach out to me and see you in the next one.